Okay, so before I head off for vacation, I want to do one of these challenge problems with you, just so you have a video on your own that you can watch and take some notes on individually. You might find it helpful because this is kind of a tough concept to grasp here, at least initially. So you may want to have you may need to watch this like 1, 2, or even 3 times before you sort of see what I do with this problem. Okay, so this is, again, we're factoring by grouping. I have 5 times a minus 3 minus 2a times 3 minus a. Now, at first glance, you might think, what's so difficult here? Can I just factor out the a minus 3? Well, wait a minute. These aren't the same. This is a minus 3. This is 3 minus a. So you might be thinking, oh, well, there's no common factor. There's nothing I can do. Well, there is something we can do. We can do a little trick here that's going to make it so that this becomes this. Now, what you'll notice is a minus 3 and 3 minus a are opposites. What do I mean by opposite? I mean that they have they have different signs. So, for example, I'm going to get rid of the variable for a second. This is just as an aside here. Let's say I have 7 minus 3, right? So, for example, like if a were equal to 7, 7 minus 3 is equal to 4. Okay, well now let's take the opposite of that. What's 3 minus a? Well, again, if supposing that a were 7, I'd say 3 minus 7. Well, that's almost the same answer, right? It's just that it's negative 4. So whenever you see this, an a minus 3 and then 3 minus a, where it's just a difference but in reverse order, these are opposites. Now, what can we do? What can I do with this to make this so that it's not the opposite, that's the same? Well, there's a trick. We take this second one. I'm not going to change this one. I'm just going to change this one. And I am going to factor out a negative 1. Because we can always factor out a 1 or a negative 1. Everything's divisible by 1. So now when I do that, here's what happens. I have 5 times a minus 3. Again, I'm not changing this. 5 times a minus 3. When I factor out the negative 1, though, I'm dividing out a negative 1. I'm just doing this intentionally. Negative 1 times negative 2a, it's going to multiply with this, is going to make positive 2a, right? Because multiplying by negative 1 changes the sign. And then technically what you have over here now inside, once I divide both 3 and negative a by negative 1, because I'm factoring this out, it leaves me with this. I have negative 3, because 3 divided by negative 1 is negative 3. And then I have positive a, because negative a divided by negative 1 is positive a. Well, now look closely here. Isn't negative a plus 3 the same thing as saying a minus 3? Well, yeah, it is, because look here. A is positive, a is positive. 3 is negative, 3 is negative. So I can go ahead and write that as just a minus 3. So that's a really long-winded explanation for just saying something that's pretty straightforward. Factor out a negative 1. And remember, this only works if the expression that we're trying to factor out are opposites. And now from here, this problem's basically done. We just factor it. So it's grouped already. We see that they now have a common factor. We have the a minus 3 that we can factor out. So I'm just going to write a minus 3. And then our other factor is going to be the positive 5 and the positive 2a. So 5 plus 2a. So like I said, it's a little tricky, this whole dividing out a negative 1. It's going to change this sign. It's going to change these signs. But once you do this once or twice, you'll get the hang of it. Here's another one if you'd like to copy this one down and try it on your own, because I'll work through this one with you, as well as a couple other examples I have are like this. But if you can do this, this is probably the trickiest thing that we'll do with factoring. Good luck.